Hi, I'm Kirsty. I have two children and my eldest has severe allergies. He's now 15, so I've managed it for the last 15 years. My son Jacob was diagnosed with a milk and a nut allergy when he was just 9 months old after an anaphylactic reaction to me passing on traces of peanuts to him by kissing him. The allergies were diagnosed pretty much straight away. After I finished breastfeeding, I put him onto a dairy formula and he reacted to that as well. So by 9 months he had an allergic reaction to dairy and to peanuts, so I took him off them immediately. It took a little bit longer for the doctors to diagnose it, but as a mum I knew that those were the triggers. My first reaction to finding out about Jacob's allergies primarily with fear and confusion. I was quite a young mum and just didn't have a clue of what to do really. I had a baby who couldn't have milk, so I had to find an alternative, and I turned to something called nanny care, which was a nanny goat formula, and obviously had to avoid nuts in any way, shape or form because he was severely allergic. So I was just really scared more than anything. I immediately just stripped the house of nuts. I was a big nut eater, I loved them. I still do, but I don't eat them at home. I cleared out any dairy products that are in the house, and I changed my own diet as well, so I haven't had dairy since that day really, apart from a bit of chocolate. And yeah, just made some immediate changes to make sure that he wouldn't accidentally consume any. It made me feel, quite worried that I was going to mess up and give him something by accident. It made me a bit fearful of everything really. I was reading labels left, right and centre. I was trying to educate my family as well, because I was on my own with this baby and my family would often get involved and feed him, so I had to make sure they were all aware not to give him anything. My mum lived with my mum and dad, and they did a lot of scratch cooking, so I had to make sure they didn't just cook anything that had nuts in. And yeah, it was all just a really scary, confusing time, and there wasn't an awful lot of resource out there back then. Back then, there was definitely not enough support for allergies. There's hardly any products, hardly any brands. Health visitors and the doctors didn't really believe in milk allergies. It felt like they thought I was a bit stupid. So I really just had to sort of read up a lot of different forums, and found a lot of other mums out there that were going through the same. It just wasn't as well known as it is now. So yeah, I did. I found a lot online and read up a lot, and I went to my local health food shop. My mum and dad had one, so that helped, but they had a lot of independent brands and suppliers that I could sort of talk to about it. It was a complete overhaul of my life for the first 6 months whilst I adapted to it, just reading labels and supermarket shopping and going to school when he started school, and yeah, everything was incredibly different. And even just taking him into nursery with his own food and his own yoghurt and his own homemade ice cream just so that he didn't miss out. It was all a lot of work, yeah. Oh, birthday parties. They were a challenging time. As he got 3 and 4, obviously going to lots of different birthday parties at nursery, and that's actually what got me into this business. I was making ice cream at home so he didn't miss out on his jelly and ice cream, and I was taking it to parties, and that was when I sort of realised that there was a gap in the market for really tasty, free from healthy food. The main emotion I felt as my son got a little bit older was guilt. I felt guilty that I had caused the nut allergy. Maybe I ate too many when I was pregnant, or I felt guilt that he was missing out, because it just seemed like all his little friends were absolutely fine, and yeah, it felt like he was the odd one out, and I just didn't want him to feel like that. how did I keep my fear in check? It was very, very hard. I had to educate as teachers at nursery. You know, children were bringing in Nutella sandwiches, and schools weren't really aware of allergies back then. I had to read labels, understand the may contain and what that actually meant. And some of my favourite brands I wrote to get an explanation, just to check that whether or not I thought he could actually eat them, a lot of which would be fine. I had to educate my parents a little bit more because they kept making things that contained nuts or traces of dairy or such like. So yeah, a real educational piece, and just doing the same with my son really. Even when he got to about 6, he was sort of asking to read the labels and asking people, and yeah, it was just a real joint effort, and it sort of kept my fear at bay. Jacob, from being about 4, was very aware of his allergies, and he would tell everybody and just make sure he was safe. And then as he's got older, he's hidden it a little bit more because it's not quite cool. So yeah, different ages bring different sort of dynamics and different challenges really. So he's always been involved in you know, the understanding of food, and he was the main reason behind the business, and he's been my chief taste tester. So yeah, different ages bring different challenges. It's never easy though, but hopefully things are getting a little bit better in that there's lots more products around. Schools are so much better now than they ever were. Teachers and you know, the school cooks are just so much better, and they avoid nuts in the canteen. I mean, it's very hard with milk because milk is just in everything, isn't it? In cheese and in butter. So that one was a bit trickier. But yeah, schools are so much better. I think just sit down, talk to the teacher, talk to the cook or whoever that may be, or if they're on packed lunches, just make sure that there's no cross-contamination and the children are not sharing and doing swaps. But I'm a lot happier with how schools are nowadays than what they were 15 years ago. The advice I'd give to parents that have just discovered if their child has an allergy, first of all, don't panic. You really don't need to. Things are so much better now. There are so many lovely free-from products, and I would say it's better if the whole family can start avoiding them if possible, otherwise you'll end up with 2 fridges and 2 ovens. It just can make things a lot trickier. I see people with 2 toasters. I mean, yeah, just take a step back, focus on the allergy, focus on those ingredients and where they might be coming from. Speak to your favourite brands, you know, see whether or not they actually do contain those, or if they're putting the may contain on as just as a warning. Find out, you know, how likely that cross-contamination is. Speak to grandparents, speak to anybody that caters for that child, because as I say, with me, mostly it was either my mum or my dad that gave him an allergen by accident. So yeah, speak to people that are cooking for them, speak to school or nursery, just get as much help as you can. Get on a couple of good Facebook groups. Some of them are a little bit preachy and I would avoid those, but there's a lot of positive ones where it's mums and dads just sharing tips. And just educate the child as they grow. And to be honest with you, a lot of allergies do get grown out of as they get older, so there's always a chance that it's not for life. My son's still got severe allergies, but my daughter doesn't have any at all so far. So it's not necessarily forever, but just go back to basics, look at ingredients, and if you can, do it as a family, or you know, make some healthy recipes that don't contain allergens, and then the whole family can enjoy it.